the nonfictionfilm.com interview with the director of City of Ghosts, Matthew Heineman, and one of his principal subjects, Aziz. And welcome, gentlemen. So the film debuted, I think, at Sundance, is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
What's the reaction been so far? It's about to hit theaters, but you've taken it to a few different film festivals.
It's been great so far. It's been, I think, unfortunately, the film is, still as relevant as ever. When the film premiered at Sundance, it was a few days after the quote-unquote Muslim ban. Right now, as the film is about to be released in theaters, a ground offensive to get rid of ISIS in Raqqa has begun. So I don't think this topic is going anywhere anytime soon. And my goal with the film was to really put a human face to this issue of ISIS, this issue of Syria, and to allow people to go on this visceral journey to hopefully get a greater understanding of these topics.
So explain for everybody what the City of Ghosts is. It's Raqqa, and for those who may not have been following the news as closely as they should have of what the story tells, it's about a group of citizen journalists, Aziz among them, who at incredible peril are trying to get news out about what's happening there, but sort of set the scene a little bit for what we see in the film.
Sure, yeah. City of Ghosts is a documentary chronicling the journey of this group. Raqqa is being slaughtered silently. They're a group of friends who banded together after ISIS took over their hometown, and they banded together as citizen journalists. They all came, were studying to be doctors and lawyers, and didn't have to do this, and so they made this choice that they wanted to resist, and they formed this group to expose the atrocities of ISIS.
يلي هو جهاز انترنت فضائي اللي ممكن داعش انه تلقط الاشارات تبعه عن طريق سيارات.
كان لازم نسلط الضوء على مدينة ووقتها بالحقيقية بيننا وبين داعش.
بينشر صور على الانترنت باسمائنا وصور مأخوذة من شوارع بيوتنا.
And it's about this media war between the two groups, between ISIS's slick propaganda on one hand and RBSS and their videos trying to counter this myth that ISIS has created a peaceful caliphate.
Yes, and RBSS, meaning Raqqa, is being slaughtered silently, the acronym for the group. And Aziz, did you ever imagine yourself becoming a journalist? You felt that the conditions in your home city were such that you had to effectively take the risk to become part of that group.
Yes, that's true. So I didn't think at all to be a journalist. So I graduated biochemistry. And what I'm doing is like completely different than what I graduated. So I decided to take this mission, and I was not the only one. So many other Syrians made the same thing. So we gathered together to establish kind of a media center to report the news. And when ISIS came and took over our city, we decided to complete the same work and to report about the Syrian regime atrocities, ISIS atrocities at the same time. So I haven't thought one day that I will be a journalist or I'll be doing what I'm doing right now, and even like standing here talking with you.
And you alluded to that, Matthew, but I mean, ISIS, one gets many aspects of it, is they're very media savvy, and they like to, quote unquote, control the message. And so Aziz, maybe you can speak to that of why it is important to get actual footage out, actual eyewitness accounts of what's happening there. Why is that so critical in terms of revealing what the true situation is in Raqqa?
So when ISIS took over my city, the main thing that they focused on how to spread their propaganda, to recruit people all over the countries, all over the world. And they were able, in a short time, to recruit people, thousands of people from 84 countries. And googling anything about Raqqa, you'll have like only ISIS propaganda, ISIS fake news, and like watching TVs or reading newspapers. I noticed that all of them started to take ISIS as a source. So that time we were in touch with our friends, families, relatives, and we knew the reality of what's going on. And ISIS was promoting this propaganda. So it was like kind of a duty to do something to show the reality. Otherwise, ISIS will be able to recruit more other people. They will give like a bad and a wrong photo of our city about the Raqqa people. So we decided to show the reality about what's going on. So ISIS kept saying that Raqqa is the paradise, Raqqa is the place where all the people they should go and join ISIS. And we started just to film the reality, like lines of hundreds and thousands of people waiting in line to get food, while ISIS fighters or soldier members are eating in a fancy restaurants. So to show the reality, to show all that things, it was like an important thing to do. And that's the reason why ISIS started to target us, to kill us, like in Syria and even outside Syria, to threat us daily and trying like to find out where we are. So it was like so important like to have more awareness, education, knowledge about what's going on in Syria.
And Matthew, the footage that we see in the film is absolutely extraordinary, the barbarity of what's going on there. Was it difficult as a filmmaker to decide what to show and what not to show? I mean, you're showing assassinations and killings and crucifixions. It's almost defies, one's ability to get one's head around it all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't want to shy away from the violence. I think that would have, been an injustice to the true horror and fear that the citizens of Raqqa live with every single day. And so, I felt like it was important, and I felt an imperative to show that. At the same time, I didn't want people to, run out of movie theaters and to turn off their TVs or however they're watching films these days. And so it was very much a balancing act of showing the violence and the necessity to do so, but also being cognizant of how intense it was. And it also, is clearly part of the story. The story is about image making, the power of images. And so, these images were organically part of the story. So it wasn't trying to be, we're not trying to use the violence in a pornographic way. It's inherently part of the narrative that this film is telling.
I think the film comes around at a very interesting time in the sense that if you look at the American context, we have an administration that is really on the attack against journalists and trying to discredit what they do as effectively as a profession. So it's interesting here where in your film you see how vital journalism, be it institutional, if you will, or the kind of citizen journalism we see. It really shows how vital that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made this film for many different reasons, but one of them is precisely that, is, in this world of fake news and where truth seems to be malleable, this film is an homage to journalism. It's an homage to citizen journalism. It's an homage to a group of people who have, risked everything to fight for the truth, to seek the truth. And, I think that's an important thing to get out in the world right now.
And I see, as we see in the film, that you received, or your group received, an award from the Committee to Protect Journalists. What is your sense of whether the West has paid adequate attention to this? I mean, we've seen some documentaries about Aleppo, for instance, occasional news coverage, but there's been, whether it's because of ISIS's tactics in Raqqa, there's hardly any news that people really are aware of coming out of Raqqa. And in general, I think the Syrian crisis has kind of been ignored in the West. Do you think then that Syria, not just Raqqa, but Syria in general, has been slaughtered silently?
Yes, for sure. Like 7 years, and like who could imagine that things would happen here, like in the 21st century. People are getting killed, people are starving, people are getting killed because they don't have enough food, because of the cold, because of the rockets, because of the barrel bombs. So it's been so for sure, like Syria is being slaughtered silently, and the thing that it's like the new Holocaust.
Yes, I think it's very hard to argue with that. I was struck in watching the film, a parallel in a sense to Cartel Land. Wanted to see what you thought of that, and in the sense that ISIS is very good at branding itself. It's got the black flag, it's got certain iconography, but they brand themselves also with this extreme brutality and violence and public lynchings, you might call them. In a sense, it's a little bit like the cartels that you depicted in Cartel Land, of this stringing people up off of bridges and kind of branding themselves as this group of such incredible violence that, woe to anyone who should defy them in any way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are definite parallels between the two groups. I mean, I think one of the things that ISIS has done incredibly successfully is disseminate fear all across the world. I don't think there's anyone in the world that hasn't heard of ISIS, doesn't know what ISIS is doing, doesn't know about ISIS. And they're also using it as a recruiting tool. These slick videos are used for those two reasons, to spread fear and to attract followers. And they've done that successfully. And as Aziz has taught me, and as I've learned through making this film, ISIS is not really a group, it's an idea. And this idea lives all across the world, with disenfranchised people, with people who have a perverted view on Islam, and a whole generation of children and youth who have been indoctrinated by this ideology. And so we need to figure out ways to combat that. And I think the efforts that Aziz and his colleagues are doing are an incredibly important step in doing so.
And tell us about the release plans for the film. It's about to come to theaters.
It'll be released in theaters first in New York on July 7th, and then spreading across the country starting in LA July 14th.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, both for your courage and for a really incredible film, important but beautifully made as well. So again, congratulations. And that's City of Ghosts with director Matthew Heineman and Aziz, one of the very, very brave journalists who's risking his life and trying to get the word out about what's happening in Raqqa. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.